So whatever you said.
Right.
Well, you read the resolution too.
Yeah. Hey, can you just come up off the top of your head? Just think about it. If you can't think about anything, it's fine.
Yeah.
But pass it to me after you're done.
Okay.
Everybody's wonderful. I'm trying this whole standing thing, so, you know.
If you're gonna stand, you should use the stand.
Do you want to use I've never tried to use this. I'm going to bring it over here, though.
Okay.
That's okay. Never used a stand, never stood. It's just all these new things.
Why stand?
I want to try it because I think I have more energy, and plus, like, I'm jumping on my seat because of the rock star, so I'm like, I should try to release some of this, or else I'm going to have a heart attack.
You're probably gonna have a heart attack.
Probably. My pee's only green, so.
If that doesn't get called out by 30 hours of no sleep test.
I know. It's not a tournament week, it's fine. Alright, we're gonna start now. Everybody good?
Yeah.
JT's good. Awesome. Starting out, the resolution of the United States federal government should withdraw from NAFTA. The United States federal government should withdraw from NAFTA. Go down to the first argument, which is the framework. The first argument is that epistemology comes first. Epistemology shapes our methods, and our methods lead to our actions. Bad methods lead to bad policy actions. You can look to the California Proposition 187, which sought to deny state services to undocumented immigrants based on the methodology of otherizing individuals, which comes from the epistemology of otherizing individuals, which led to human rights abuses. You can also look to Jim Crow laws, which look to segregation and overwhelm public actions of racism under the guise of separate but equal, but it does not separate, but it wasn't separate but equal. But it wasn't separate and equal because they didn't think about their methods first before implementing the policy action. You can also look into Senate Bill 1070 and the anti-immigration law, the xenophobia, which were rooted in xenophobic methods and epistemology. You can look to the second framework point, which is that discourse shapes reality. Debate is the only space in which you can question the ideological structure of the status quo. PhD Stephen Leano said that debate serves as a pedagogical discourse in which we can all discuss and move towards better ideas as through discussion. Discussion about epistemology and methods is the only way to lead to proper policy actions. Debaters' only tool in this round is individual agency, in which we promote advocacies that we find epistemologically sound. The third framework argument is that the role of the ballot is to vote for the team with the best ideological way of alleviating oppression. The role of the ballot is to vote for the team with the best ideological way of alleviating oppression. This passing of policy is only structural adjustment. It's appeasement of capitalism. It's basically capitalism with a smiley face. The affirmative team values all human life for inherent value and not just worth, which means we need to critique the system rather than pass a policy option and act within the system because our individual agency is all we have. The next argument is the thesis. The first argument under this is that capitalism reduces people to value in numbers. Human life is framed from a business profitability standpoint rather than looking at people with inherent value. According to Merriam-Webster, success is defined as the fact of getting or achieving wealth or respect or fame. Business Insider says that 1 in 5 Americans feel wealth determines self-worth. The second argument is that cap exploits anything and everything for monetary value. It allows us to violate basic rights of animals, the environment, and those labeled as different. The GDP doesn't measure sustainable resources, simply measures short-term profitability. The third argument is that you should prefer humanism. Humanism allows for life to be valued regardless of monetary value or services provided. We must not look to profitability but instead to individual value. Philosopher Francis Fanon concluded that masses of suffering under these economic models could be liberated only if they rejected them and persuaded instead economic principles that emphasize the value of humanity above all else. He's quoted saying, but what matters now is not a question of profitability, not a question of increased production or production rates. The notion of catching up must not be used as a pretext to brutalize people, to kill them, to break them, or to tear themselves from their inner consciousness. So we must affirm that consciousness. Next is the problems of the status quo. NAFTA endorses a system of capitalism that is inherently damning. The capitalist system is bad because it will always value dollars over human life and dollars over the environment. You can look to the 100,000 Chinese workers that work to make the iPhones and how they're only paid like 85 cents a dollar and they have no safe working conditions. Like their lives are literally sacrificed at the point that they're working in unsafe working conditions just to make a phone that people can use, and yet people don't care as long as the iPhone has Flappy Bird on it. You can look to the 2022 World Cup in which they're building the stadium that hundreds of people have died from, yet nobody's taking action against it because of the poor working conditions. But nobody cares because it's home to the working system. What?
No, just go ahead.
It's home to the working system. The second is that NAFTA reentrenches poverty cycles and reentrenches the poverty cycles that capitalism thrives from. Reentrenches the capitalist systems that capitalism thrives from. You can look to how it increased Mexico poverty by 50%. And there were 19 million more Mexicans in poverty because of NAFTA, because they were forced out of their jobs because of American workers coming to work, which means that it just reinforces that poverty cycle. The third argument is that human rights abuses. Mexico does not have the same kind of laws in place of their system, of their workplaces that the United States does. So companies moved there after NAFTA to have jobs, which means that we're increasing the amount of people suffering from human rights because they're working in factories that don't have the same kind of places that we do, which means that people are constantly, their lives are being valued less because of the production value of what they're producing. Nobody cares as long as their iPhone gets made properly. Yeah, your question.
Real quick, are you still on thesis?
No, problems with the school.
Okay.
So, yeah. And, yeah, then NAFTA makes it harder for poor Mexicans to sell goods locally because of the bigger international markets, which decreases their income, which lowers their quality of life, which further reentrenches this poverty cycle that capitalism continually thrives on, that the resolution asks us to affirm, but we take a stance against it as debaters because we are looking to our individual agencies to reject the problems of the status quo. We'll go to the impacts. One is that the capitalism dehumanizes us. It says that we are only worth our production value. The second argument is that this places a dollar sign on human life. When someone is living a life that they feel is unfulfilled, it causes depression. Dehumanization leads to spirit murder. When someone's life is unfulfilled, it feels worthless. Second argument is that cap leads to extinction. Cap is the root cause of consumerism. It leads to an endless growing production consumption cycle. The lack of resources leads to auto-cannibalism. This causes extinction. Go down to the alternative. The alternative is to vote affirmative to reject capitalism and endorse a humanistic approach to society that affirms class consciousness. Vote affirmative to reject capitalism and endorse a humanistic approach to society that affirms class consciousness. My partner will get you a copy. The alternative solvency is one, that radical reorientation from capitalism. It shifts ideologies from the norms to capitalism to commodify human life. It no longer commodifies human life. It takes away the levels of power from current capital leaderships. It affirms class consciousness. It doesn't base people's worth off of production, and there's no inherent inferiority. The second argument is that the balance of production and consumption. The alternative endorses people following economic principles that humanize them over possessions, that you value human life over possessions, and prevents resource depletion because we're valuing resources and our lives over the actual things that we're consuming. The third is that rejection solves. Rejection is an active process and stands against an action. Critical resistance is key.
There's your copy.
Yep.
That's it, all twelve.
Yeah, we're gonna, I'll flip.
Or should I start grabbing?
No.
Okay, just check.
It's took 30 freaking seconds. Okay. It will be a lot of understand. I need to stand.
Oh, sorry, I'm now. Here, there.
Okay. Let's not do this. Wait.
If you want to keep this one, I can copy that though. Oh, you're writing copies from?
No,
Yeah,
this is
no.
mine copy.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I just need this, I'm almost done.
Okay. Do you want the order?
Yes, please.
5 sheets off. Then alt solvency. And then framework thesis impacts in order.
Wait,
Okay, so
5
sheets.
different offs or 5 different
5
sheets?
5
Sheets off, cool. And then your order again.
is alt solvency. And then framework thesis impacts or problems with SQL that impacts it.
Firmware.
Pieces, browser squad, impacts.
It's the same order, just doing your alt consultancy and stuff.
Okay.
Okay, off-time thank yous. I'd like to blame Josh personally for this round.
Yeah.
This is definitely Josh's fault. And I've never done this before, so I definitely need this on the coaching meeting. Cool. Alright, you ready?
Josh.
The one is a framework. The interpretation is we are evaluating the debates of dialectical materialism. You are a historian inquiring into the determined factors behind this PMC. The role of ballot is going to be to endorse the historical outlook of the topic with the most explanatory power. Again, the role of ballot is to endorse the historical outlook of the topic with the most explanatory power. The 3 points under this. The first is when particular facts are irrelevant without totalitizing history theory. The act makes universal what is particular to capitalistic mythology inquiries to prior. Capitalistic mythology inquiry is prior to action. The 2. The insistence on locality and all political discussion within the state is used by capitalists to destroy the universal consciousness of class. A Marxist method is necessary to explode this horizon. Politics are not made on superior arguments. They are instead based on what rich people want, and less popular opposition is mobilized outside of policy circles. And 3, debate is the critical side of resistance. The way we frame and decide our educational debates over capitalism will determine the strength of the cap's hold over all of us. We must set limits on capitalism in every sphere of human life. The thesis. Marx's labor theory of value is going to be the best. Is going to be the best description. The one under this is that privacy. Privacy of life is determined by wealth. Our experiences are ordered by the economic candidates that we are. Our economic conditions we are born into. The app is futile without prior theorization of social totality because it overlooks the systematic necessities of their impacts. The 2, universality. The totalitarian theory is the most productive and allows for inclusive coalition building to resist structures of power. The EA is going to be a 2 at the bottom of the sheet. 3 is the ideology. Capital imposes epistemic blind spots, which bankrupts their decisions making, causes to dismiss radicalization and submit to the confines of the SQL. Their impacts are propaganda that should be ignored by only dialectical criticism and allows for the production of truly objective knowledge. I'll take your question.
Yeah, can you explain universality for me? Like what that concept is?
Universality is going to be the theory that we need to be the most productive for all people, which is very similar to the humanizing theory. No follow-ups. First link. Link is that Marx's theory is going to be more effective. Marx's theory is going to be more effective than their proposition. The 2 of this is that capitalism is, that's a squiggly line. Capitalism is the actual root of NAFTA.
Flow.
So impacts. First impact is going to be that capitalism fuels its imperialistic drive. The end of this is that the South China Sea, when we have the Sea, the South China Sea, the capitalism is increasing its idea of taking over a new area that it doesn't already have. The 2 of this is that capitalism is destructive logic will exceed materialism in social spheres. The end of this is that it would destroy eco limits and that was going to lead to climate change. And the end of this is expansion in the new movement of democracy. New markets of democracy all leads to unemployment that proves that capacity only needs 20% of the labor force in order to actually exist. Capitalism automatically means that you do not need 80% of the people. The C under this is that the ideology is universal. The 3 under this is that determinism allows for the premises to see attempts to take place. 4th under this is this term's case. D is the alt. Vote neg to endorse Marxist labor theory of value. The alt is to vote neg to endorse Marxist labor theory of value. The first obviously point is that revolutionary theory is going to be a prior question. Without revolution theory is no actual movement. The 2 under this is that to vote neg is upon ethical necessity of decay by bringing practices of violence that we are able to cope with. The condemnation is necessary. The 3 under this is that enmity versus capital. This makes crude epistemology. The aim of this is if we can lead to social antagonizes. I'm trying. Okay. That's the last point. So on to case. On to the alt. from NAFTA. They are rejecting the topical notion that they can't uphold their alternative. When they do this, what this is going to mean is that they are rejecting the idea of actually using their methodology in place of practice, which means they are not actually going to be leading to a revolution. The second point under this is that the negations alt is always going to come first, because rejecting the theory of capital is endorsing a theory behind it that leads to revolution is always going to be the prior question, and it's always going to lead onto this. The third point under this is that humanism is incredibly isolating. We see that humanism is against more religious than the rest of the world, and when they are distancing themselves from this, they're distancing the number of people that can jump onto their theory, which means they are not going to have as much revolution as possible. The fourth point under this is that they are under their solvency. They're claiming that this shifts ideology. Okay, sure, but shifting ideology is not actually going to get you anywhere. My first response under this is that you only have access to the fiat within your body and yourself. You do not have access to anybody else in this room, meaning that at the end of this 45 minutes, you cannot gain any fiat power outside of this. The next response under this is that our alt solves better because we call for revolution, because we are actually rejecting the theory of capitalism within this framework. The next point under this, they talk about humanizing. Again, they are not actually being able to humanize when they exclude some people in the world, and they are not actually leading to a revolution, which is going to change the way the world works. Finally, they talk about rejection solves. Yeah, gee, rejection and revolution is what's going to be the solve when you're going to vote big. Is that your question?
Yeah, so who are we alienating / like not including?
Humanization inherently opposes religion. Onto the framework. We talk about epistemology is going to be first, and my response is that epistemology.
Oh my god, I hate
Just pause time.
You know, they pay how much per year?
For this
And this, they can't keep flights.
It's for energy saving.
Lots of eating dance.
Okay. So under their framework, the click and roll about is going to be to. I didn't miss roll about. What was the roll about? Best it removes oppression. My first response is that oppression is always going to be there inherently when you do not actually remove capitalism and instead create a revolution. My second response is our roll about is going to come first, then, because those who do not learn history are doomed to repeat it. Therefore, taking a historical approach is going to be more beneficial in this round. So we are going to prefer our roll about. Yeah.
Ours is actually strong because we just cross marks versus there is no history whatsoever.
Yeah, and they have no history. That means they have no lit base behind this. We have lit base and we have a reason behind it. Therefore, we have a historical reason to prefer our regard under their thesis. Yeah.
What is your link base?
Karl Marx, the theory of labor theory. Okay, protect your time now. Under the thesis, they say that capitalism is going to be bad. We say that we solve better under their idea of humanism. We already covered this across the plan. Under the reason that school is bad, you could have been solving school. You are the app. You are on the better side of the resolution because you rejected this. This is a reason to reject the app and vote neg within this reason. Under their impacts, you're never going to reach your impacts because you are never going to be able to solve back your capitalism until you start a revolution, have lit base behind it that are actually going to allow people to get behind it. So overall, you're going to be preferring neg because the app had the opportunity to reject the resolution, had the opportunity to do this. So when you take your ballot back, you want to be circling neg against this resolution because they think the resolution's bad and we think the resolution's bad, therefore creating the perception that it's going to be a neg vote today.
Okay. What do we want the order?
Do their framework on top.
Okay. Order is neg framework on top. Next.
The neg alt.
You said our framework?
Yeah, your framework. Where it is.
Sorry, we're trying to not.
No. Casey wondered why we had so much prep time. We were like,
It's okay. Okay. We're just gonna go framework. Okay. Neg framework. Framework. Yeah. Do you have Then it's gonna go thesis. Neg. I assume these are. I don't know what these are because they weren't tagged.
wonder why you didn't tag them.
No, I did not tag that.
Oh, I'm very glad there's
Individuals,
that.
those are tags. That's a random page. This is
Nice
what
that it uses
this was happening.
You
framework.
clearly tagged.
Hey, was your privacy? That's thesis, bro.
Privacy was thesis, yeah.
Yeah,
Marxist
no,
labor
okay.
theory of
Okay,
value.
we good.
Okay, so
Thesis.
Okay, we're gonna go with the negative framework. Then we are going to do the negative thesis. You know what? We're gonna go case in order. We're gonna go neg case in order and then app case in order.
Great.
Because like this is just a mess and I don't want to deal with it right now.
okay, my order or your original order?
We're going the neg critique in order, then we're going the app critique in order.
Cool,
We have all the pages for that.
Let me organize them. Okay. Where are the three red boxes?
I thought this was going to be the
Okay. Where is? Are you writing stuff on those? This is the neg K. Okay.
I know, dude. It's just.
It's because we've got like a million trillion pieces.
Yeah.
of
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Y'all
we're
just
gonna
get
start and we're gonna sign posts.
Yeah, great. Okay.
Give me all of these.
Okay. Take it all.
Literally all of these pieces of paper that are in this.
Take it all.
Like I literally have like 16 pieces of paper and I'm so angry.
All right. Here we go.
What is that?
In my recycled paper.
Just
I'm so angry. Just do the paper.
Okay, here we go. Starting up on the negative framework. Even it's on the clock. Everyone ready?
No, clearly not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ready? Okay. I'm sorry. Taylor's throwing papers and I can't get over it. Okay.
Guys, this is being recorded.
Okay. We're good. Okay. Okay. Taylor, stop it. Okay.
Team loses to zero.
Everyone shut up. Okay. On the negative framework, the only thing contesting in today's debate, framework is going to be the only contesting thing in today's debate. So really what this debate is going to come down to in today's round is whether or not each team is actually able to individually eliminate capitalism in the status quo and what the impacts of that elimination looks like. So, on the framework, you're going to prefer our role of the ballot because we give more reasons to prefer because they give no reasons why we should be preferring the negative roll of the ballot, at which point you're just going to default to the affirmative based off of the reasons why we give you. There's no reason why you should be preferring the roll of the ballot. They don't talk about how it does anything in specific or why it solves for anything. They go to that later, but they don't talk about why their framework is better for the round. At that point, default to the affirmative framework. We give you specific reasons why our framework is better for the debate. Also, also, oppression by capitalism is the most proximal and tangible impact which our rule of the ballot best addresses. Their rule of the ballot does not address oppression created by capitalism. At that point, we're going to be voting off of affirmative because we're the only ones that are actually solving for the oppression that occurs as a result of capitalism, whereas the negative is actually just not doing anything. They're not engaging capitalism. They're just acting in a thought experiment without actually doing anything, whereas the app critique is actually trying to engage capitalism on an actual, tangible level where we engage in, more critical thought, I guess. Okay. Also, extend across the flow where they talk about how debate is a critical side of resistance. We agree to this. Yeah. Okay, so both teams are arguing that cap is bad, which just means that it's a question of who solves best, which we're going to show you why we do. On to their thesis, when they talk about the Marxist labor theory of value, they say that cap... what?
They say cap bad. Awesome. So did we.
Oh yeah, they're saying that cap is bad. Awesome. So are we. Extend this point across.
Extend the entirety of thesis.
Yeah, extend all of the thesis. It's the same
Except for
thing.
where they say impacts of propaganda.
Yeah,
We're
except
critiquing the same thing.
except for impacts for propaganda. We're going to show you why we don't link into this critique in a bit.
No.
Wait.
We are critiquing the same thing. So they're saying the impacts are propaganda. If our impacts are propaganda, so are theirs.
Yeah.
This makes no sense.
Okay.
The rest of the thesis we agree.
Yeah, we're both critiquing capitalism. So if our critique of capitalism and our impacts are propaganda, then their critique of capitalism means that their impacts of propaganda are propaganda as well. Perpetuated by the capitalist state, which is not good. Okay, great.
Talk about how we solve that.
Yeah, on to their alternative. When they talk about how you should be voting next to endorse the Marxist labor theory of value. Marxist labor theory of value never solves because it creates a homogenous society in which every individual loses their identity, which just creates further marginalization by state powers and by capitalism because they're not actually doing anything. Oh, just kidding.
No, keep going.
Okay. They're not actually doing anything to solve for like systemic violence and or their thought experiment is not engaging the critical oppression of minorities that's happening as a result of capitalism. At that point, you're going to default to our framework because we're actually engaging in systemic violence and oppression that's occurring as a result of capitalism instead of just talking about like Marxist labor theory of value. We're all going to have a homogenous identity, which is bad. Also, even if you don't buy that, PERM, do both. Remove capitalism. What's ours? Just PERM, do both. Okay. When they talk about how you're voting upon ethical necessity of capitalism, we agree with these points. When they talk about how the ideal of cap critique is to create enmity towards capitalism, we do this too. We're just doing it better than they are because we're addressing minorities specifically, which are the ones that are being systemically harmed by capitalism, which is the reason why we should be preferring our advocacy over theirs. Or the thought experiment.
Yes. Marxism in itself is harmful because it's sexist. Racist.
Yeah, also Marxism in and of itself is like a bad movement in general. Marx was pretty exclusionary at the point where the only person he cared about was the white proletariat male. This ignores systemic impacts occurring on minority level, people like the queer community, people like women, people like trans women of color, people like black men in the status quo, people like Latinos, Asians, Native Americans, and all the other marginalized groups that the negative advocacy doesn't choose to acknowledge to the point where they use a bourgeois philosopher that specifically, well, maybe not a bourgeois philosopher, but definitely a racist philosopher that doesn't acknowledge the oppression of minorities and only acknowledges the oppression of the white proletariat, which is bad because that's just going to recreate a new capitalist system in which the white proletariat rules under socialism, which will just perpetuate the same impacts that they're trying to solve for and that we actually solve for. Next, onto the affirmative framework. When we specifically talk about how the role of the ballot is to vote for the team with best ideological way to minimize oppression, this goes unaddressed to the point where they say oppression is always present and we don't solve because we don't create.
I fucking hate this round. Specifically, the lights.
I just think that,
Maybe we should just start having the debates back there.
Probably. I'm probably gonna get a strike for
So much cussing on the framework.
Yeah, you're on that framework, right?
You're on framework, right?
Yeah, we're on framework. Okay, on the role of the ballot specifically.
Yeah.
I'm going to start the time again. Okay. On the role of the ballot specifically, their only argument is that oppression is always present when you don't create revolution. We create revolution, but better because we're actually actively engaging minorities, and at that point, you're going to prefer our role of the ballot and cross-apply our analysis from the FA.
From the app framework.
Oh, from the neg framework.
Yeah, sorry.
From the negative framework, you can cross-apply our analysis and all that we made there. We're actually creating a revolution that matters because we're not just acknowledging the white proletariat as the only one that's suffering as a result of capitalism. We're specifically talking about intersectional minority voices that are suffering as a result of capitalism. Next.
False justice.
On to the thesis. Extend the thesis specifically where we say to prefer humanism. Conceding this is a devastating blow to the negative at the point where they don't address the thesis, they don't talk about why we shouldn't prefer humanism. You can prefer our lit base, which is Franz Fanon, and we specifically have a lit base and spent a whole paragraph talking about his literature. We have a lit base that's better than theirs at the point where it's inclusive of minorities and the ecosystem and animal rights, which are all intersections that are ignored by the negative at the point where they specifically only address the white proletariat males suffering as a result of capitalism, which is bad. Additionally, you can extend the point where we talk about, no, yeah, that's it. Okay, yeah. Next. Okay, this is our alt. Okay, on to the affirmative alternative.
No, this is our alternative. Yeah, we're the alternative.
Yeah. Okay, they specifically talk about how we should be rejecting the resolution withdraws our support from NAFTA, which doesn't create a revolution. We're doing this through humanistic means. We're creating a revolution better than they are. You can cross-apply the analysis that I made on the previous page, talking about how we're engaging minorities, which creates revolution better, which solves better. Additionally, they say humanism prioritizes religion. We're not talking about religious humanism. We're talking about humanism that values human life individually separate from any other capitalistic means of expression, which includes religion, which is commonly used as a tool for capitalism. Look to yeah, you know what? We're not even going to get into that. We're not talking about religious humanism. We're just talking about humanism in general.
Okay, to specify that, when we're talking about humanism, we're talking about prioritizing human life.
Yes,
it's not humanism, the religion. And if you want
human life, which includes minorities, not just the white proletariat, which is all Karl Marx wants to acknowledge under the negative critique in hence the Marxist labor theory of value. Okay, on to the affirmative, roll of the ballot and solvency page for that. They bring up all these arguments about how, like, we're not creating revolution, whatever, and they specifically say about how rejection and revolution specifically solves, cool, we're rejecting better because we're affirming human consciousness, which is the best thing in today's round, and we're doing it on a much broader scale to the point where we're inclusive of minority voices, we're including those marginalized individuals that the negative critique doesn't actually acknowledge. At that point, we're the ones that are solving best. Also, they say that we only have access to the individual body field. This carries through to the negative critique as well. I don't know why they bring this up as an addressment to us. If this flows through our critique, it flows through on them too. Yeah, we're the ones that are doing revolution best. Let's go on to the impacts. Extend all of our impacts where we talk about how capitalism is dehumanizing and how to lead to extinction. This includes the extinction of minority voices, which the negative, once again, chooses to not acknowledge, onto the problems of the squo. We are the only ones solving the problems of the squo. Yeah, great. Solid. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about this later.
No, let's put this from alts on top of each other.
Well, how come it's a
It's totally my alt case. Our alt case.
It's okay, baby. It's okay. You like it.
What did you say?
So I'm going to go alt, R, 10, confusing. Your alt, R alt, R links, R thesis, R.
So wait, your links, your thesis?
Yep. R framework, your framework, your thesis.
Can you tell me what?
Both the R and S too, so we're really gonna put those bullets.
Can you say the order one more time?
So your alt, R alt, R links,
Our index behind that.
R links, R impacts,
Yeah.
R thesis, R thesis, R thesis.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
Okay.
struggling.
Our framework, your thesis, which has the problems of the flow under it.
Yeah. So if there's a lot of statements.
Okay. One more time, and I promise you we're good.
Your alt, yes. Our alt,
Yes.
our links,
Yep.
our impacts,
Yes.
our thesis,
Cool.
our framework,
Cool.
your framework,
Cool.
and then your thesis, which is problems of the flow under it. And then,
Yeah. There's no statements.
Spread it out.
So when you see cap, think anti-cap or anti-cap. This is a huge cap is really bad.
Really fucking bad. We're talking about it twice. Never hear any.
you're going to be voting GCU, HM today's debate round for the strong reason that our alternative and our alt solves better than the affirmative alternative. Our world is actually more real world and actually has an actual base to it, some literature, actual base of the theories that have actually been applied in the real world versus the affirmative team. Their ideas are all up in the air and not have actual solid ground behind saying this will actually work in the real world. Let's move down to the alt debate. Under the alt debate, they respond to Genevieve's disadvantages, but saying it's through a humanistic means, so it's better. My first response is there's no examples of how this is actually better. Once they give you no examples of why this is better, there's no reason to vote on it. Once there's no actual warrants behind this, is why humanistic is better than Karl Marx, there's no reason to vote for it. My second response is Russia. There's an actual example of people using Karl Marx means through Russia, even though maybe that wasn't honestly the best idea, at least there's an actual example versus the affirmative team. Once the affirmative team has no real world examples, okay, disregard all of that. Let's move down into the next ideas. Let's move down to the responses.
No, put the turn on it says by not rejecting the resolution, they in fact endorse NAFTA, which will come back to the
Put a turn on that right there, saying once they don't reject NAFTA, they're not actually doing anything. They can't actually reject capitalism. They're endorsing capitalism at the point where they don't actually dismantle NAFTA. That means that there's no actual change going to be happening in today's debate world. Yes.
What are you doing that we're not?
The negative team doesn't have to solve for the resolution. The negative team actually has to make a change and have a negation against this, have actual direct conflict. The affirmed team is not even interacting or conflicting with the resolution because they're affirming the resolution while trying to deny capitalism, so they can't solve for anything humanitarianistic once the NAFTA is still in place. So they can't solve back whatsoever. There's no solvency whatsoever with the affirmed team. With the negative team, you're actually getting solvency of capitalism being dismantled through Karl Marx theories. Let's move down into the solvency responses. Generally put on the whole the idea that your only access to fiat and they all solve better, and that but not one excluding some. They've said rejecting better with humanitarian. My first response is this. This is again a response to the same trend that I said before. This is a huge thing for voting for why voting for the negative team, because they're not actually going to be solving whatsoever. They cannot solve back. Their impacts won't happen. The impacts will only happen through the negative team, so you're going to be weighing that through that instance. Let's move down into the alt. Their first response was saying that this never solves that it homogenous society and systemic violence. My first response is that the theory actually values everything. At the point where the theory actually involves everyone and that the theory actually applies to everyone, it doesn't actually say in the theory like exclude this person. Maybe Karl Marx himself had that idea, but he didn't actually recommend the theory. The theory's actual stance that the theory does apply in different instances. If the theory can work in places like Russia and also places like North Korea, that means it doesn't exclude anyone. That means it involves other people, and the theory actually is real.
Yeah, let's not read North Korea good.
Okay, North Korea is not necessarily good. But it's not exclusionary at the point where anyone actually has access to using this policy.
There's also no examples for the access to Marx and that.
Yeah, they gave no examples. Actually, their disadvantage was basically saying that, oh, he's sexist, oh, he's racist, but they give no actual examples of how this is real inside the actual theory. So it doesn't stand today's term. There's no actual warrants for this argument. Let's move down into, they said perm do growth. My first response to this is not, they did not say that it's going to do perm and non-competitive parts. So to the point where they're not actually having an actual perm text, they can't actually have a perm text in today's favor. There's no actual way to stand behind this.
When they say perm do both, that means vote neg to endorse. That's
Yeah.
what it's in the alt.
Once they say perm do both, they're voting neg to endorse it. So they're trying to,
Which means that you have to vote neg.
which means you have to vote neg to the point where they say perm do both, but not saying non-competitive parts. That means you have to vote neg besides today's background. My second response is the perm is a bad idea. The point where they just say like, oh, humanitarian this, oh, just let me just perm this, it'll be fine. It'll work together. No, it doesn't work together. The fact where they just usurp anything that has a negative to doing. They're actually saying that their ideology. They're saying our ideology is bad to the point where they're at, and then they're saying that no, we're just going to perm it and we're doing it at the same time. These things conflict, and they can't actually do both at the same time. Let's move down to our links. Sorry, I don't have time. Okay. Let's move down to the links. They didn't touch our links whatsoever, so they didn't. That means in today's year, this idea still stands that Marx theory of labor is better than the affirmed team's theory, and also that capitalism is the root of NAFTA. At the point where they're again not rejecting or removing NAFTA, that's the point that they're affirming the resolution while trying to reject it. They can't do both at the same time. It doesn't work today's world, so you're going to be defaulting to neg at the point of presumption. Let's move down into
Flow through all the
flow through all the impacts. These are unaddressed by the affirming team also. Let's move into our thesis. Our thesis, basically, all they said that our impacts, they said, oh, flow through all this is all the same. They said that our impacts are propaganda, then ours are propaganda too. Wrong, because they're not rejecting NAFTA, that means their impacts are propaganda at the point where they're not actually doing anything inside society, and so they can't actually reject anything that they're affirming at the same time. So their impacts are propaganda because their impacts can't stand in today's big world. They're saying like, oh, these great things will happen, but they actually can't happen in today's big world because they're actually affirming the resolution while trying to reject it. They can't do both at the same time. Let's move down to our framework. Our framework, their response was basically the only thing contesting tonight's debate is the ideology framework, and yes, that's partly true. We're trying to say that the negative team's ideology framework and mental thought process is better than the affirmative team. My first response is this: we have a stronger piece behind this. Look at our actual critique as a whole; it was much stronger and had more parts to it to actually view reasons why it is better. My second response is we have actual warrants. Once you have actual warrants to the point of saying what's actually happening is bad, where they just have actual things saying the status quo is bad, and that's the majority of it they spent their time on, actually dealing with their actual critique of what the actual mindset of capitalism. That means you're going to be defaulting to the negative team at the point where they don't actually give actual basis for why capitalism is bad. They said roll the ballot that we gave no reason for. Genevieve put in 3 arguments on this saying that you should prefer it because not only historically, because the roll is actually better, oppression is always present, and also that we have an actual literature base. This is the thing, we have to look at this historically. Once there's no historical point on the affirmative team side, you have to look at this historically, and the negative team gives you that. That stands maybe started completely, and that's a total the reason to perform, and they can never meet this roll the ballot at the point where their actual alternative is just like saying that the humanitarian aid through capitalism and humanitarian things. That doesn't actually deal with the actual issue and has no historical base behind it. This is oppression is based on capitalism. My first response to this is NEG does this. NEG deals with this through Karl Marx theory. They have no reason why the NEG can't do this through Karl Marx theory, and it does actually do with oppression. My second response is that Karl Marx theory values everyone's work equally. Once we value everyone's work equally, there's no oppression at the point once everyone's work is valued the same. This solves for Karl Marx theory. My third point is Furman keeps NAFTA in place. They can't actually solve for oppression once they keep the oppressive system in place. That means that we're just rejecting something while keeping it in place, and that doesn't work, and you can't actually solve back for that. And you can't solve for oppression in the actual system once oppression is being affirmed and negated by the affirmative team. Let's move down into their framework. Their framework, they basically said here that they're actually engaging minorities. My first response to this is wrong. How are they actually doing that? All they said that what we're going to do is reject capitalism and do that. They didn't say reject capitalism and help minorities be bolstered in the actual system. They never actually said that, so they have no guarantee this will actually happen in today's payroll. Literally through like every speech.
Yeah, we're just gonna have to start having the debates back.
This is literally the round from hell.
Can this one get deleted too? If you guys watch this, I hope you can laugh.
I know, I think they will laugh.
We're all gonna except for all off the team. Let's just keep going. Okay.
35 seconds left.
At the moment, they don't actually engage minorities. All they're saying is like, oh, help them through humanitarian help, whatever. That's not actually engaging minorities whatsoever. That's all that's saying. That
it's a white savior idea that they're just coming in and saying.
Yeah, it's a white savior idea, basically saying that once white people reject capitalism, now look at everything's solved. I still have 30 seconds.
I'm sorry, I haven't been paused.
Okay. So white savior mentality, you're saying, oh, we will come in and reject capitalism and help you somehow, but not actually do it by keeping NAFTA. That's lying to them and saying like, oh, we're going to reject capitalism and help you, and then they're not really at all. Down to their thesis, they said endorsing minorities again. How are they doing this? They haven't explained how they're actually doing this. It's not actually happening. So we're going to be voting on negative in today's debate.
There's so much paper. Kill all the trees. Okay. Let's put, yeah, say your alt, our alt, our links and impacts, our framework, your framework, and yeah, thesis. Your thesis, our thesis.
You gonna sign post?
Yeah. No. I think you are.
Dark, I get it, you're punning. Because we keep getting put in the dark.
Hey, you're giving way too much credit.
Accidental puns, Genevieve.
Taylor's dead inside.
So
Let's start.
Judge, these first 2 pages are going to be the easiest place to vote for H&M. The first reason is because when they choose to not uphold ACBR, and it was so easy to just have their alternates reject NAFTA and they choose not to, that's going to be a reason that they are in fact endorsing NAFTA and endorsing the capitalistic mentalities that go around it and endorsing the states. All of that is right there in their affirmation today, which is going to be the easiest place to vote for the negation. On the second sheet of paper, wow, you guys are cool. We're going to go into the fact PERM doesn't solve. It might be nitpicky, but because he didn't say PERM do all non-competitive parts, he literally said PERM do both. Alt text, you're going to look back on your flow, clearly says vote NEG to endorse Marxist labor theory. So I guess 100% of debaters up here think you should be voting NEG. Therefore, this is going to be another really easy place to just circle your ballot for the negation today. Finally, you're going to not buy the PERM because you can't do both theories at the same time. This isn't going to be working. This isn't going to be inclusive. Finally, you're not going to buy the disadvantage because there's no warrants that say this. They say, oh, Marx is a bad guy, and then sit down as if that claim is going to be enough to go against our entire thesis and our entire list of impacts, which is why you're going to be preferring this today. Finally, note that they never touch the alt solvency, therefore that flows through, which means that we have the best solvency within the round. Next argument on there is that, we have 2 little itty-bitty links that when they don't touch it, that means they link into our criticism, which is a third really easy place to vote for the next day. Finally, our impacts are going to be, you're going to far outweigh our impacts, because while I did touch on their impacts, they have nothing on our sheet of paper on impacts, which means when you're looking at this through on the floor today, you're going to be preferring the fact that when you vote F, you are going for the inherent destruction of capitalism and the end to all the climate change and to determinism. And finally, on the last of the impacts, on the fourth point of the impacts, it says specifically Turing case. And that has been dropped for their speech. It's going to be recent for Nick. Yeah.
Once they concede, they admit there to be real impacts in the debate world.
Yeah, once they concede, they admit them to be real impacts within the debate world. So finally, on the framework. Framework he just mostly agreed with. What we're going to come down to here is the role of the ballot. I'm going to point out I had 3 reasons to prefer our role of the ballot that goes dropped by the MG. When that role exists, you're going to be preferring our role of the ballot, which is to endorse the historical outlook with the most explanatory power. You're going to realize that based on my previous idea that our critique is stronger, we have more of that explanatory power, you're going to be preferring the next day. So, yeah, and the idea that we're helping everybody through Karl Marx theory. They're going to say that here, tell you that Karl Marx himself was awful. They give you no reasons to refer why Karl Marx's theory itself is harmful to these people. When they haven't brought that up, that's going to be new information, which means they're going to point of order them in their next speech, but they're trying to bring up examples of how the theory is bad and not just a person. So finally, on their framework, they have nothing left to stand on here. When we tell them that we need to create a revolution, and they have given you no reasons why they're actually helping minorities. They're just trying to alleviate oppression, but they're not actually lifting anybody up. But when that happens, you're going to be preferring the negation. Today, our 2 theses is you're going to look clearly over the size of them, and you're going to prefer the one with the most explanatory power, because we both agree capitalism's bad. Cool. And finally, by them not rejecting NAFTA, which means that they don't actually reject the state, which means their impacts are all state propaganda, this is going to be the easiest place to vote. So in a 2-world scenario, not only do we have the critical line-by-line analysis that is going to allow the negative to win, but we also have a world where they act like to say they're doing something, but they're not actually getting anywhere. And the negatives not only specifically saying to reject capitalism, but it's also leading a revolution, which is the only way you're going to see real change.
Okay. First, I'd like to say I blame this round on me standing. I think that was the problem. Now, moving on. The order is going to be the framework. We're just going to do the framework debate. So wherever you want to flow it, their framework, you're going to put them together. Same thing with the theses. First, the affirmative thesis, then the negative thesis. Then we will do the negative alternative, and then the affirmative alternative. Then we are doing the impacts. We're going to do the negative impacts and the, our impact. We will be doing impact out on each sheet. The overview is on top. You may flow it on whichever framework page you feel necessary. Judge, you will be voting on the fact you are. I don't know what happened this round. I'd like to extend a round of apologies to those teams. Yeah. Now, I don't know. Alright, we're so getting reprimanded after those things. Okay, everybody good?
Yeah.
Alright. Judge, you will be voting on the basis that the affirmative team is the only team that effectively solves back for capitalism and all marginalized parties. Go to the framework page now. What you see here is that we're both saying the same things with the framework. The only contestant here is the role of the ballot. The 2 roles of the ballots you have are to vote for the team with the best ideological way to minimize or to alleviate oppression, or the role of the ballot to endorse the historical, most explanatory power. When you're looking at these roll of the ballots, you need to look at the reasons to prefer that came off of ours that went drops. We tell you to prefer our roll of ballot because oppression by capitalism is the most proximal and tangible impact. There's no response to this. You need to prefer this impact. But even if you are not buying that roll of the ballot, we still win under the other roll of the ballot because we are still talking about the history of capitalism. We're both talking about capitalism. We talked about the history of NAFTA and the problem of the SQO, which means we meet both, but our roll of the ballot should be preferable because we're talking about alleviating oppression, which is going to be what you're voting on in this round. Those are the impacts it comes down to. Go down to the thesis. Both of the thesis pages are talking about why capitalism is bad. On our thesis page, we tell you to extend preferring humanism, thesis point 3. They do not have a response to why this is bad. They try to tell you that we're talking about the humanism religion, but they fundamentally misunderstand what we are talking about with humanism. Humanism literally allows for life to be valued regardless of monetary value or services provided. That is in our little a under thesis point 3. And when we extend that and there's no response to this, that is the point that you are voting for us. They continually try to tell you that you're not voting for us on this thesis point because humanism doesn't solve because we didn't reject NAFTA in some way. We tell you that in our alternative that we're rejecting capitalism, which means we're rejecting NAFTA, but we'll get to that more on the alternative. You're going to be fucking kidding me!
The only solution to happiness is abortion. Jimmy was the only non-victim of the light turning off for the last week.
You're going to be fucking kidding me.
Just tell Mary not to watch this. I know Emma and Jason will love this.
Emma's gonna be so mad. Okay. I'm tired. Awesome. Because I can stop by. Damn, I was on a roll. Alright. I'm on the thesis. I'm on,
Yeah.
Everybody good?
Yes.
So, at the point that humanism is the better alternative, or is the better thesis point, you're going to be looking to that. Either way, the theses are both looking at capitalism. This is the only thesis point you need to look at because it specifically tells you why you're voting for the affirmative team. Go to the next thesis. The next thesis, the only point you need to look to here is the impacts of propaganda. They never fully explain to you why our impacts are propaganda and theirs are not. This is written into the shell as a spike for cases promoting capitalism. We don't, so this is the point that you're not looking to this. It doesn't matter. If you think that our impacts are propaganda, so are theirs. So then what are we here for? It doesn't matter. That thesis point is a wash. You're looking to the thesis point of capitalism bad, and it comes down to who's solving better, which brings us to the alternative. On the negative alternative, you can extend where they say that the perms are not competitive and that you shouldn't do both. Yeah, cool. We're not going to do both. We are standing by our alternative, and we are going to continue to look to the disadvantages that JT so excellently put on this alternative. We tell you how Marx is both sexist and racist and not a preferable ideology. They continually tell you that Marx is better than not having any sort of literary base at all. However, we tell you in our thesis point about the literature base of Fanon, where we talk about the different resource exploitation. That when we extended the thesis and that didn't get responded to, that's the point that you're voting for us on the lit base, because we at least don't have a sexist racist as our ideological basis. They try to tell you that Karl Marx at least has a theory that values everybody, and it was just himself who was the racist. Okay, if there's a person who creates the ideology that you're based off of, and he's the racist, obviously he's going to have the preferential, like he still has the racist element in there. If you're promoting his ideology, you're promoting his personal ideology as well. So at that point, you are going to be dropping this team because they still have the Marxist, sexist, racist ideology within their alternative. There's no reason to do this alternative whatsoever. Go to our alternative. There's literally no reason not to do our alternative. They try to tell you that it doesn't reject NAFTA. Our alternative is literally vote affirmative to reject capitalism and endorse the humanistic approach to society that affirms class consciousness. By rejecting capitalism, we are rejecting not only NAFTA, but the entire system that NAFTA operates under, which gives us direct access to our impacts as well as their impacts. We are the only people who solve for this while also alleviating the oppression of individuals, because we don't view them as numbers, and we also don't view them by the color of their skin or their gender, as Karl Marx does. So the point that you are going to be looking to this because our alternative solvency flows through this round, and our alternative solves better for the problems of the status quo as well as both of the impacts. Go to the impacts, we solve better. anything off and throw it at the wall.
On behalf of all that debated here, we would like to sincerely apologize for how this round went. It was just very many missteps. Okay, sorry.